That is so important to have specific policies and also following the recommendations of the bar associations, which relates to the client-attorney privilege rules or the confidentiality rules or the privacy rules. And that was so good to see from you that you gave some examples for these policies and how in a company ChatGPT 2 can be used.
Welcome to On Record PR, where we go on record with industry leaders to discuss best practices for public relations strategies that drive business success. Let's get started with the show.
Welcome to the 125th episode of On Record PR. I'm your host, Gina Rubel. Today, I'm going on record with Éva Kerecsen, who is a highly experienced legal professional with a passion for ensuring transparent and compliant operations in the dynamic world of technology. Éva is Chief Legal Counsel at NNG LLC, which is a prominent company in the automotive software industry. She's been managing and coordinating the entire legal activity of the NNG company group for almost 10 years. Éva oversees approximately 800 legal issues a year, spanning copyright, e-commerce, IT law, employment law, commercial law, and data protection. Additionally, she has played a critical role in the expansion of NNG's global presence, coordinating legal activities and advising NNG subsidiaries worldwide. With a keen focus on bridging the gap between law and technology, Éva is a sought-after expert in the legal field, leveraging expertise to address the intersection of legal issues and technology advancements. Please check out our show notes as there's lots more to learn about Éva, but let's get started. Hello, Éva, and thank you for being on our show today.
Hello, Gina. I am so excited to be here. So happy. Nice to meet you.
I am happy too. So let's set the stage. We met in the beautiful city of Budapest. So let's talk about where we met and why I'm so excited to have you here today, this wonderful topic.
Yes, that's right. We met in Budapest on a World Service Group conference organized for lawyers. That is a professional network for lawyers. And I was talking about artificial intelligence on that conference. Yes, I am a Budapest-based lawyer, so I can bring a bit the European perspective to this very famous podcast, and I am glad to share my thoughts on it.
I am so happy to have you here. In fact, this is our 125th podcast, and you are our special guest because this topic is so very important, especially how it affects the global community, corporations, and law firms in particular. And with you being in-house counsel, it's really important for our listeners to understand that corporations are very well aware and are paying mindful attention to these topics. So let's jump right into it.
Yes, when I was talking about artificial intelligence on this conference, what I experienced was a very live, vivid discussion about artificial intelligence. The whole room became so active. So we had a lively and also lovely discussion about this topic with the lawyers. And why I was talking about this topic is because I have a very close relation to artificial intelligence from several aspects. I would split it to two main categories. So I am facing with my professional advising part, because I am not just as a legal counsel of an automotive software developer company called NNG, but also having my own legal practice and advising to clients having business on the technology field. And I can face a lot of questions from these companies and during my work. Mainly, there are three categories in the security is the one. So everyone having fear against whether the usage of ChatGPT and other AI tools are safe enough for use. The other one is the trade secret and confidentiality questions and issues, what I am facing with. And the third one is the copyright and the IP part. So that is material questions, how we can utilize what we are creating by using the artificial intelligence tools. And on the other hand, I also facing the benefits of the tools from the administrative perspective, because as a head of an in-house team, I also regularly checking the opportunities, how I can benefit from the usage of these legal tech tools. And I see three main areas here as well. One is how we can make it more efficient to review a document and to ensure the compliance with the corporate standards. The other one is the filing system. So that can be a very efficient filing system and can make out of a lot. For example, if we have a due diligence and have to filter wisely and respond to specific questions. And that also helps if I have to prepare a summary for a board meeting, for example, about a bunch of contractual portfolio and give a specific answer for the liability cap, for example, the overall liability cap. And the tool makes it in minutes. So that is amazing.
Amazing how quickly our jobs are getting done. So with that as the perspective, with your experience, what are the ethical considerations and what are you telling your colleagues and other attorneys that they need to be thinking about?
There are many ethical considerations regarding using AI. There are many which are more global. I wouldn't really touch these topics and issues, but rather focus on those which are more relevant to the legal work. And I would mention at first the hallucination of the AI, and especially the large language models like ChatGPT. And that is basically that they are making up and creating information or content that doesn't align with the reality or factual accuracy. And that is coming from the principle of these large language models, because the primary task remains that the prediction of the next token, that is what is the next word in the string of words. So that is the reason why it can hallucinate.
So to explain to our listeners, I'm just going to share. So a hallucination, and what Éva is explaining, is that it predicts what the next word will be. It's based on algorithms and essentially mathematics.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's making these predictions, but it's literally the way we would hallucinate as human beings. It's making up the information. And so I have a question for you about hallucinations. Have you been following the case out of New York?
Yes, and exactly, I wanted to mention this case that happened where a New York lawyer in an injury claim made the claim by using ChatGPT, and the claim contained many of not existing precedents.
Right. So the cases were made up.
Yes.
And what's so interesting about that? So now, as you know, I am a former litigator and I run a public relations and crisis communications company in the US, but we have clients globally. And why I find this so fascinating is that we did an analysis using one of the AI tools that we use on how much pickup that case got in negative press. And as of the 2 days ago, which is a month after the case happened, it had over 250 headlines, 700 million views so people who are seeing this on the internet of this negative press because they used ChatGPT in a way that it was never meant to be used.
Yes.
Which is a really good opportunity then to talk about the EU's recent adoption of the AI Act. Could you provide us with an overview and tell us why that's so significant?
Absolutely. So how I see in Europe, the regulatory body is taking steps in order to change the approach and protect the human values and the European citizens, and switched from the soft law approach rather into these regulatory steps. And recently, just a few days ago, the European Parliament has adopted the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. That is going to be applicable not only for those companies who are based in Europe, but similarly to GDPR, it is also applicable for those companies who are, for example, in the US, but providing AI services to European citizens. And the act is on a risk-based approach and categorizing the AI tools into 4 different categories. In the first category, there are those AI tools which consider unacceptable risk. And these are going to be totally banned in Europe. For example, the tool, the social credit system, which has been used in China since 2014, that is going to be absolutely banned in Europe. That based on social scoring. You as a citizen may get scores, positive or negative scores. If you are, for example, commenting something positive in social media, then you are going to get positive points. If you donate, you are going to get positive points. But if you are not paying back your bank loan, that you are going to get negative points. And these scores are going to decide whether you are entitled to travel, for example. So for the basic human rights, or which university can your child attend? So basic things are based on the social scoring in China. And that is absolutely going to be banned in Europe.
I don't understand why.
Yes, to protect the human rights and human values. And I absolutely agree with this approach. The regulatory body has to protect the citizens and the human rights and the human values.
So I read up on generative AI and AI tools every day, and I did not know about that. And that is just, I had no idea. That is mind-blowing that you can socially score or give someone a social credit in China. That is,
yes, in China.
I'm glad the EU has decided to ban that.
Yes.
What's the next level? So you have risk is unacceptable.
Yes, on the second level, those AI tools are, which considered as highly risky AI tools. And there are a sector-specific approach. There is an annex of this AI Act, which enlists those sectors and areas where the AI tool is used. Then the user and also the developer has to comply with specific requirements. For example, the management and operation of a critical infrastructure, such as transportation or healthcare, are falling in this category. So if there is a driver drowsiness system, for example, which is based on an AI algorithm, then the developer and also the car manufacturer have to comply with the new regulation and with all these measures which are prescribed for the highly risk AI systems. And here, both the developer and the users have to make an ex-ante impact assessment, and also applying for the authority to have the AI tool registered.
So since you're in automotive technology, do you fall into that category?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, some products may fall into this category. That's correct. So that is going to be a huge administrative and real evaluation work.
Because if I recall correctly, at the WSG conference, you were talking about automated vehicles.
Yes, myself and also my colleague. Yeah.
Right. And so that would make sense how an automated vehicle would fall into that highly risky category and have more regulations.
Absolutely. That is crucial. So everyone's health and safety and security is connected to this.
It's pretty amazing. So what's the third category?
The third category, and now we are getting back to ChatGPT, because the chatbots and all those systems that interact with humans are falling into this category. And for the third category, the main rule is the transparency. So those who develop and also use the ChatGPT have to disclose that the content was generated by AI tool, and also have to publish summaries of copyrighted data which were used for the training.
And how do they get that data? Oh, that's a whole nother conversation, isn't it?
Yes, it is not easy to. That is rather applicable for those who are making the algorithm and developing the algorithm.
I see.
Yes.
See. That makes sense. So if we have risk, unacceptable, high risk, and then what's the title of this next category?
That is the limited risk category.
Limited risk. And then what's the fourth one?
The fourth one is the low and minimal risk category, and there is no obligations for this category. So the rest lies in here.
So I'm just curious, and I wasn't originally planning to ask this question, but when you have other countries that have banned the use of ChatGPT, and I believe Italy is one, how does that play into the EU rules?
Yes, temporarily in Italy, the ChatGPT was banned, but after several discussions with the government and between OpenAI and Google, they made a release from this ban. And these were mainly because of the privacy concerns. And that's a valid question. So the privacy always there. And on top of the AI Act in Europe, the companies have to also comply with the GDPR. And that is going to be quite a complex situation. So we have to interpret also the EU AI Act. But on top of this, we have to be careful that we are also complying with GDPR. So, for example, if I use ChatGPT then and put some data of my client into ChatGPT, I not only have to comply with the transparency requirement, but also have a legal basis for handling the data and involve ChatGPT as data processor and make the proper documentation to put it there. And on top of that, I also have to comply with the recommendations of the bar association. So that's also important.
Understood. So just for our listeners, I'm going to let our listeners know that we'll put a little bit of an explanation and some links in the show notes that will be on our website that will give you more information. If you're not familiar with GDPR, we'll give you that information in the show notes. We're going to take a short break for a message from our sponsor, and we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Gina Rubel Communications. Recognized as the #1 agency by the National Law Journal, Gina Rubel helps top businesses and law firms with high-stakes public relations and marketing, reputation management, crisis planning, and incident response, including high-profile litigation media relations. To learn more, go to furiarubel.com or email podcast@furiarubel.com.
Welcome back to our show. And I am so excited to be talking about generative AI. So, Éva, how has the adoption of AI, such as ChatGPT technology, impacted daily work and productivity of lawyers?
What I see, it is a very great tool. So you can make researches, you can use it for summarizing something or helps lawyers to write an email or memo on a certain topic. So in our everyday lives, it can help a lot. But on the other hand, I also see that the tool is also available for the customers. And that is quite interesting that the customers are doing also the research work and they are prepared. So the knowledge is not just for the lawyers anymore, but the clients are more prepared for a discussion. I realize that. On the other hand, I also see that sometimes they got a very wrong conclusion. I am not quite sure what is the reason, either the hallucination of the ChatGPT or the lack of legal structural thinking. Because you may have the blocks and woods and everything, but if you are missing some structural elements of house design, the house will collapse.
I love that you use the house analogy in my book, Everyday PR. I talk about the analogy of a house and how it has different elements. Like you need an engineer, you need an architect. There's different layers of information. And I didn't think about generative AI that way, but you're right. We're pulling from information that's out there already, and you're assuming it's accurate, which it may not be.
Yes.
It certainly doesn't do away with the importance of human evaluation. But one of the things, a lot of people like to say that, lawyers' jobs are going to go away. And that's so not true because everything is fact specific.
Absolutely. And okay, some people may prepare based on the ChatGPT and make the researches, but ChatGPT will never win a case for you or will never negotiate a contract in a way what you would like to achieve.
Right. It's a starting point. That's all it is.
Yes. And a helping tool. And I think that is really a great tool and facilitate our everyday work. But we'll never understand the human reasons and the humanity and the feelings, what leads a case for being sued, for example. So the emotions are so important.
The way I think of it is if you are to cook a meal and you look in your icebox to see what ingredients you have available, if you put those ingredients into Google, you're going to get a whole bunch of different recipes to look at. If you put them in ChatGPT, they're going to create a recipe, right? But it's not necessarily going to give you all the details you need. You need to take the time to look through it. Well, how is this going to work with that? But it's much faster. So or if you go back even further in technology, you don't have to go to the cookbooks on your shelf.
Yes.
Right. So it's just taking the time, but you still have to check it to make sure it's going to work.
Yes, absolutely. Good example. Good analogy.
I always try to make the analogies a way that anyone can understand, because what we do in the practice of law is quite different. And while most of our listeners are lawyers, I like to give everyone a chance to understand that. Now, in your general counsel role at NNG, are you asking your panel lawyers how they are using generative AI tools, if they are doing training? Like, what are you asking them?
I trust them, so I know that they are using in a right way. But what really important is to give them as an advice to understand at first generative AI. And that means that everyone has to test it, its capabilities, its functionalities, the potential legal implications, just testing, really. So when you know the answer, but it is worth to try it, and what is going to be the answer from ChatGPT. And I see lots of misunderstanding also in that part, and not correct in each time. And that is the second one, connects to the second point. We have to always acknowledge the limitations of ChatGPT and making the validation. So, okay, we used it, but always check it, what the output was, and also verify that the cases are right, which were mentioned, or the informations are correct.
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT was never made to be a case research tool.
Absolutely. That is a general tool, and it is absolutely not for legal professionals.
Not for case research, that's for sure. So what are some specific ways that lawyers are leveraging large language models in the legal practice?
They can use it as a tool for rewriting emails, memos, summaries, and also making some researches, but just in a certain extent. So, for example, that can be a good tool if you are preparing for a conference and there is someone to whom you can start to talk about that specific question. And maybe you can have some good ideas or directions, what you wouldn't necessarily think about. But after consulting ChatGPT, you can have some good inputs to your speech.
I agree. I just used it myself. I had to write 2 proposals for speaking engagements, and they were very specifically tailored to the venue, their theme, their audience. So the more specific your prompt, the more specific the outcome. And it probably saved me 3 hours of work. Now, I did not use the initial output.
Yeah.
I used some of it, but it gave me the ideas. And I think as a lawyer and a communicator, it's a lot easier to start with something and edit it than it is to start with a blank page.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And also with the approach itself. So not using like the New York lawyer used it.
Right.
So, and that is absolutely clear. But as a good input for the further work. And that's absolutely great for that.
Yeah, but we also have to remember that it's only as good as the data that it has, which goes back to, I think, it ended in September 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I wonder when that's going to change. Don't we all, right?
Yeah.
So how can lawyers strike a balance between using generative AI tools like ChatGPT and maintaining the critical human element in legal work, such as client relationships and empathy?
That is getting back to the previous idea that how important the human factors are in a legal case. And how I see in each legal case, the main element is what the client wants to achieve. And there are human feelings, sometimes anger, sometimes they want to just win the case, feeling the winning, or take revenge in certain cases. And that is so important for the lawyers to understand what is behind the court case, for example, or of a dispute.
And really what the client needs, right? So you might decide this case is a high-risk case for us. We need to settle it. And there's a strategy there that a machine is not going to give you.
Yes. And I also see that now the human skills are going to have more values also at lawyers. So to improve your speaking skills, your emotional part, and being more focused to the humans and the human values and the feelings. And you can become better lawyer and have some distinctive character.
It will be interesting to see when a company comes out with a large language model that's built on emotional intelligence, like all these rules. And so that'll be interesting to see.
Yes. And some part also the ChatGPT wants to have as well. So sometimes it can also answer some questions in quite an emotional way. But that is not the same. And also that's right for the creative work. So where we are giving copyright or for a specific creative work. And the law values the human interaction and the human work of it and the humanity in the work. What I could feel when, for example, I listen to a good Queen song and I just feel the goosebumps on my arms. But you would never feel the same with a generative AI song. You will never feel the same.
It's never going to give you that heartfelt, true emotion. But that being said, there are concerns about bias and fairness and potential misinformation using generative AI in legal contexts. So how can these issues be addressed by law firms and corporations alike?
That is so important to have specific policies and also following the recommendations of the bar associations, which relates to the client attorney privilege rules or the confidentiality rules or the privacy rules. And that was so good to see from you that you gave some examples for these policies and how in a company ChatGPT 2 can be used.
That's been a really big platform for our company. We're one of the first agencies like ours, a legal marketing agency, to adopt a generative AI use policy internally. And we've adopted it with our staff and with all of our consultants.
Yes, I saw this and I was so happy to see and this advanced work in this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Unfortunately, law firms tend to be reluctant to adopt new policies because they all have to have a say, especially the bigger the firm. But it's no different than when we were doing training around using email in the workplace or using social media. There are policies, companies put policies in place for those things to protect themselves and their employees. So we have been advocating very strongly in this space for that reason. And I appreciate you mentioning that. We just hope every company, unfortunately, right now, we're seeing law firms that are banning the use of large language models and other tools rather than figuring out how to adopt them safely. It's short-sighted.
Yeah, for example, with Samsung, they banned it because some parts of the source code went to ChatGPT, and in this way, they saw that the confidentiality and trade secrets are infringed by the employees who were using ChatGPT during their work, and it became also, I think, temporarily only, but they banned the usage of it.
Interesting.
I don't think that it is the right approach, but all the companies have to regulate the way how AI tools can be used during their work.
I agree, obviously.
Yes.
So how can lawyers stay informed about the latest developments and best practices regarding the use of AI tools in the legal profession?
I think that is so important to being actively engaged in some legal tech communities There are very good platforms on LinkedIn where lawyers can join to also stay informed on the recent development of the AI tools, the legal tech AI tools, for example, Summarize, and what are the latest development in their technology and how they can leverage it. And also being part of conferences and webinars, or just listening to podcasts like this one.
So one of the things we've done at our agency, Furia Rubel, we recently launched a generative AI resource center. So it's the Furia Rubel URL /generative AI. So I'm going to say to you and to our listeners, if there's ever anything you think that should be in there, please feel free to send it to us. It's going to be updated daily because it's changing daily. And we want to help to find a place where information is readily available, whether or not it's a conference that someone's promoting because it's on the topic for lawyers. So just to let you know, Éva, if there's any tools that you think are missing, feel free to let us know. We will add them there because we really do want to help and be a resource. If you could tell our listeners any one thing about why you're excited about these tools, what would it be?
I am excited of this tool because I feel the enormous potential in this tool and how it facilitates my everyday lives. And I am so happy to be able to use it, although I also see the dangers and risks of using this tool.
And that's what we need to be mindful of.
Yeah.
So I want to just give one more shout out to World Services Group, who invited me and my colleagues to come out and speak at the European meeting, because that's where we got to meet. And so what a gift that was. But also to say, for anyone who's never been to Budapest, what an incredible city you live in. So we'll have your contact information available, the one that we can share on the show notes. So if anybody's coming out to visit, perhaps they'll reach out to you on LinkedIn and let you know.
I would be so glad to host anyone in Budapest.
Not only a beautiful city, but everyone was so friendly and so kind. And I think I walked about 10 miles every day just to see as much as I possibly could. But I do hope that I get out to see you again and that we will share lots of good information on the show notes here. And perhaps as the field changes, we'll have to have another discussion.
Oh, I would be so glad to have this discussion. And thank you for inviting me to the podcast.
Well, thank you for spending this time with me. And with that, well, congratulations to our producers, Jennifer Simpson-Carr and Matt Henderson. This is our 125th podcast, and without them, it would not happen. So I just want to give a special shout out to them as well. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to On Record PR. Visit our website, onrecordpr.com, to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends on social media, find show notes, additional episodes, and more information. We'll see you next time. In the meantime, feel free to send us questions or show ideas at podcast@onrecordpr.com.